We need to stop everything and listen to the alarm bell that has just been rung by the one man in this country who knows exactly where the bodies are buried in the Nigerian security architecture. If you have been wondering why the war against insurgency seems to have no end date, why billions of naira vanish into the defense budget every year with little to show for it, and why our gallant soldiers seem to be fighting with one hand tied behind their backs, former President Olusegun Obasanjo has just given us the answer, and it is terrifying. The headline screaming across the nation today, Tuesday, December 9, 2025, is that the 15-year war against Boko Haram has lasted this long not because we lack the strength to win it, but because terrorism has become an industry. Yes, you heard that right. An industry. A business, a money-making machine for a select few who are feeding fat on the blood of innocent Nigerians. This is not just a casual comment from a political analyst. This is coming from a former head of state, a retired general who fought in the Civil War, and a man who crushed the Niger Delta militancy during his tenure. When Obasanjo says the war is a business, we have to look at the ledger. We are breaking this down for you because the implications of this statement are massive for every single Nigerian, from the market woman in Maiduguri to the tech bro in Lagos. Speaking during the live stream Toyin Falola interviews on Sunday, Obasanjo did not mince words. He sat alongside heavyweights like Bishop Matthew Kuka of the Sokoto Diocese and former CBN Deputy Governor Kingsley Moghalu, and he dismantled the official narrative that we are doing our best. His argument is simple but devastating. The Nigerian Civil War, a full-scale conflict that threatened to tear this country apart, lasted for 30 months. That is 2.5 years. Yet the fight against Boko Haram, a group of ragtag insurgents, has dragged on for 15 years. How is that mathematically or militarily possible unless there is a sabotage factor involved? Obasanjo is asking us to open our eyes to the reality that conflict entrepreneurs have hijacked our national security. Let's dig into this industry claim because it is the heart of the matter. When something becomes an industry, it means there are stakeholders who profit from its continuity. If the war ends, the money stops. If the bandits are crushed, the security votes dry up. Obasanjo is suggesting that there are people within and outside the government who look at the chaos in the northeast and northwest not as a tragedy, but as a bank alert. He pointed out a very specific and dangerous practice that has crept into our military operations, asking the military to be the ones buying their own equipment. He said it is not done. In a sense system, procurement is handled centrally and transparently. But when you hand over the checkbook to the very people fighting the war, you create a perverse incentive. Why would you buy the best equipment to end the war quickly when you can buy substandard gear, pocket the difference, and ask for more money next year because the war is still on? This is the industry Obasanjo is talking about, a cycle of budget releases, purchase orders, and continued violence. The former president also touched on a point that explains why our international partners are hesitant to help us fully. We have all heard the complaints that the US or the UK refuses to sell us certain weapons or share real-time intelligence. The government usually spends this as international politics or human rights consent. But Obasanjo gave us the raw truth. They don't trust us. He warned that Nigeria cannot defeat terrorism if foreign partners do not trust Lagos and Abuja with critical intelligence due to persistent leakages. Imagine a scenario where the CIA or MI6 gives a tip-off to a Boko Haram gathering, and 5 minutes later, a compromised officer in the Nigerian army tips off the terrorists. The operation fails, soldiers die, and the foreign partners decide never to share intel again. Obasanjo insists that our military structures have been infiltrated. There are saboteurs wearing the uniform, men who are on the payroll of the very terrorists they are supposed to be hunting. Until we purge these elements, no amount of Super Tucano jets will save us. And this brings us to the solution he proposed, which is quite radical but makes total sense. He said we need to swallow our pride and look at countries that have successfully fought this kind of asymmetric warfare. He specifically mentioned Colombia. Now, why Colombia? For decades, Colombia fought the FARC rebels, a guerrilla group that was embedded in the jungle and the civilian population just like Boko Haram. They didn't just use brute force, they used a combination of specialized training, intelligence, and technology. Obasanjo is saying we should invite the Colombians to train our troops. He said there is no shame in that. The Nigerian military is trained for conventional warfare, army versus army, tank versus tank. But Boko Haram doesn't fight like that. They are fleeing targets. They live among the people. They strike and disappear. You cannot use a hammer to kill a mosquito. You need a specific insecticide. We need special forces trained in guerrilla tactics, not just soldiers who know how to march and shoot at a stationary target. It is really frustrating when you think about the missed opportunities. Obasanjo shared a story from 2011 that would make your blood boil. He recounted his own back-channel intervention where he went to Maiduguri to meet with Boko Haram elements. At that time, the group was still finding its footing, and they were open to talk. he revealed that they actually agreed to a 21-day ceasefire to allow for negotiations. 21 days of peace to find a solution. And what did the government do? According to Obasanjo, they squandered it. They failed to reach out. They let the window close. That was in 2011. Imagine if the government had acted then. We might have saved thousands of lives and trillions of naira. Instead, we ignored the chance and the monster grew into the 15-year-old giant we are fighting today. It highlights a lack of political will that has plagued successive administrations. I want to pause here for a second because this is deep stuff and we are going to keep unraveling it. If you are enjoying this breakdown and you want to stay ahead of the news with real analysis, please do me a favor and hit that like button right now. It helps us get this message out to more Nigerians who need to know the truth. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Click that subscribe button and turn on the bell so you never miss an update. We are here every day giving you the gist that the mainstream media tries to sugarcoat. Now let's look at the panel itself. Having Bishop Kukah and Kingsley Moghalu in the room adds layers to this conversation. Bishop Kukah has been a vocal critic of the government's handling of security, often speaking from the perspective of the victims in the north. Kingsley Moghalu, as a former CBN deputy governor, understands the economic cost of this war. When you combine their views with Obasanjo's military experience, you get a complete picture. The failure is economically, socially, and militarily. Obasanjo's description of the precise combination of tools, training, intelligence, technology, and specialized equipment sounds like a checklist we have ignored for too long. We buy the equipment, yes, but do we have the intelligence? We have the soldiers, but do we have the specialized training? It's like trying to bake a cake with flour but no sugar or eggs. You will just end up with a mess. The collusion allegation is perhaps the most damaging part of his statement. Obasanjo effectively accused elements within the system of sabotage. This echoes what many soldiers on the front lines have said in anonymous videos over the years, complaints about their movements being broadcast to the enemy or ammunition not reaching them. When a former commander-in-chief validates this cries, it is a confirmation that the rot is deep. It means the enemy is not just in Sambisa Forest, the enemy is in the strategy rooms in Abuja. It is in the bank accounts of those who are building mansions with money for bulletproof vests. We also have to talk about the technological aspect Obasanjo mentioned. In 2025, why are we still struggling with surveillance? We have satellites, we have drones, yet mass abductions happen and hundreds of people are moved across states without detection. Obasanjo's point is that the technology exists, but it must be integrated with intelligence. If you have a drone, but you don't know where to look, it's a toy. If you know where to look, but the officer watching the screen is paid to look away, it is useless. The industry thrives on this inefficiency. Efficiency cuts costs, inefficiency inflates budget. If the war is efficient and short, there are no emergency contracts to award. If it is long and messy, the emergency funds keep flowing. This is why the comparison to the Civil War is so stinging. The Civil War was brutal, but it had a clear objective and a timeline. The leadership then, which included Obasanjo, was focused on keeping Nigeria warm, not on making money from the war. Today, the objective seems to be containment rather than elimination. We contain the threat just enough to justify the budget, but not enough to end the cash flow. It's a cynical view, but after 15 years, what other conclusion can a reasonable person draw? The bandits in the Northwest are now operating with a level of sophistication that rivals the military. They are demanding ransoms in millions, sometimes even dictating who can farm and who cannot. That is not just a security failure, that is a surrender of sovereignty. Obasanjo's call to invite Colombia might sound desperate to some, but it's actually pragmatic. We need to stop pretending we have all the answers. The pride of the giant of Africa has kept us from seeking the right kind of help. We hire mercenaries in secret, deny it, and then fire them when the politics get hot. A structured, transparent partnership with a country like Colombia for specialized training could change the tide. But will the industry allow it? Will the generals and contractors who benefit from the status quo allow a foreign partner to come in and clean up the mess? Likely not, because that would expose the years of neglect and corruption. The reality is that until the industry is dismantled, the war will continue. Until we stop treating security votes as slush funds, the killings will continue. Obasanjo has spoken the truth, but the truth is only useful if we act on it. We need to demand accountability. We need to ask why after 15 years, we are still telling the same stories of ambush and abduction. What do you guys think? Is Obasanjo right? Is the Boko Haram war just a money-making industry for our leaders now? And should we bring in the Colombians to teach us how to fight? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let's get a real conversation going. This is your channel, The Voice of the Street, bringing you the news that matters. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss our next deep dive. Stay safe out there, Nigeria.